So guys, I do want to talk about Death Before Dishonor. I do want to mention that the card looks very, very lackluster, and I'm actually going to Blood and Guts tomorrow in Nashville, Tennessee, and then I'm flying over to Dallas to go to the Death Before Dishonor show, and then I'm also going to Battle of the Belts and the Collision taping. So I do have to say that honestly, I'm happy that I'm traveling to these things. I think every single year I'll go to Blood and Guts, but I will say that I'm not really happy with the Death Before Dishonor card. It definitely is very lackluster, so I want to talk about why I feel that way. And I also want to mention that that really I do think that this needs to be a bunch of big shows for AEW, because there was some talk that they want to do a Dallas and pay-per-view. So obviously if you have lackluster stuff, that's going to really hurt your market. And if they want to do tapings in Ring of Honor and other things like that, they really just have to give their best show and talk about revamping Ring of Honor at the pay-per-view. Like, just really just say, you know what, this is the best that we can do right now, and now we're going to take it to the next level, really. And I don't think that I get that. And I also, as I've said before many times, that there's really no motivation to be in Ring of Honor. Like, honestly, our ROH men's title and women's title and maybe one of the other titles should be defended at Wembley Stadium to kind of be like, okay, you take any wrestler on the Ring of Honor roster and you expose them to a bigger and wider audience, really, as a reward for being a champion at that time. And I don't think that they had that. So it's almost like, what's the purpose of Ring of Honor? So there needs to be a lot of revamping. So I'm going to talk about the card. The first one's Dustin Rhodes and the Von Erichs, with Kevin Von Erich versus the Dark Order. And I've talked about this, honestly, the Dark Order, they all need to be released from their contract. They are joke wrestlers. Why would you have the Von Erichs and Dustin Rhodes? Why would you have these guys face the Von Erichs? Why would you have the Von Erichs and Dustin Rhodes face the Dark Order? It would be the exact same thing if you had Sting and his kids go to WWE and they're facing Otis and Santino Marella. That would not be good, because that would just make them look silly and dumb, really. You could have had, like Lance Archer and somebody else in his group that he's with. I think it's like Lance Archer and I don't even remember, really, because they don't do a good job with that. But, you could have like Lance Archer, Jake the Snake's Robert, and another person in his group. Like, that's actually a better match, really. Not the Dark Order. So I'm happy to see the Von Erichs. I'm happy to see Kevin Von Erich, and Dustin Rhodes. I really like those wrestlers, but they're being wasted on a joke tag team. And then the next match is Wheeler Yuta versus Lee Moriarty. The Pure Rules match, I hate the Pure title. There's way too many rules. It looks very stupid having a bunch of judges on a professional wrestling match. That makes no sense at all, really. So that's a waste of a title. You have the 5-way match for the ROH World Television Championship. Atlantis Jr., Leo Rush, Shane Taylor, Johnny TV, and Kyle Fletcher. The problem is you've not done anything to build up Atlantis Jr. Who the hell is Atlantis Jr.? Why did you switch the title like that? And then also, isn't Leo Rush and Shane Taylor in the same faction? So, and then you also kind of ask yourself, Johnny TV, that's John Morrison. Shouldn't he be on the AEW roster, really? So, and then why do you have Shane Taylor in this? Because isn't he like a powerhouse wrestler and everyone's kind of like either a flippy wrestler or a mix of a flippy wrestler? So it's just, it's a little awkward with this. But I do think that they have to get the title for Atlantis Jr. unless they want to kind of keep him on Ring of Honor for a couple of months consistently and actually build him and actually get to know who he is. Not just, okay, you're just going to be the ROH World Champion and you're just going to go off to Mexico or other places and we're not going to see that title for a while, really. Makes no sense. The next match is Diamante versus Layla Hirsch. There's a couple of things that I really want to see this match. I'm most excited for this match, but I do feel a little worried because you don't know how far they're going to take this. And they need to take this really far. It needs to be like Swerve versus Hangman Adam Page type of far to actually make them stand out. And if they do something that good and that stand out and they bring that over and they say something like, okay, that really puts both of them over. They go to the main roster. That would be good. That's what needs to come out of this. But I do think that I don't think they're going to get to that point really. But I really think that this needs to be bloody. This needs to be like off the wall type of shit, really. And I just like with Swerve versus Hangman, because like that's the match that actually made Swerve a star. And you saw the Swerve transition from like a good tag team wrestler to more of a heavyweight type of wrestler, that match really. So will that happen to Monty versus Layla Hirsch? I doubt that, but I honestly doubt that. But I do hope that I'm wrong. So the next match is Billy Starkz versus Red Velvet. And I've said before that, who the hell is Red Velvet? I don't like that thing she does, like where she's spinning her hand like she's like stirring something, like that just looks very dumbass. I don't want to use the word retarded. Let's be politically correct. That looks very like dumbass and silly. So I'm not like really a fan of that. So I don't think that. I think that it's that Red Velvet. It's not a good opponent for her. I think that you need like Nyla Rose or you need somebody else really. Like Red Velvet's not a good opponent for Billy Starkz. Athena versus Queen Aminata. They've done a lot of good stuff with Queen Aminata this year. She's really worked hard to be a bigger deal, so I'm okay with this match. But as I've said before, didn't we see Athena on crutches for a while? So it honestly feels like, okay, now you have somebody who you have like the MJF situation where MJF got injured when he was facing Jay White, and Jay White lost to a one-legged man. So honestly, I think they're going to have Athena retain. And then it's like what I said, what the fuck are you doing with Athena? You can't have somebody be a champion for 600, 700, 800 days and not put somebody else over. Or then it's like, what are you going to do with Athena on the main roster when you have somebody with that long of a title reign? Should she pull a Jade Cargill and just leave the company after her title reign? Because it's like, where do you go from that? And then again, I've seen some of the stuff that Athena's done, so she's not that charismatic. She's definitely very animated, but she's not like, she doesn't draw attention to herself. She's not like an MJF type of thing, really, So I do think the title reign has to end. I don't think Queen Aminata is the person that's going to end it. And like I've said, that I really think that the person that should end it would be Athena versus Willow Nightingale at Wembley Stadium, but I don't think they're going to do that, or they're not smart enough to do that. Then the next match is Mark Briscoe versus Roderick Strong, and I've kind of talked about this. Roderick Strong looks like Johnny Knoxville. He also looks really stupid with those glasses. He looks like a diver guy or a swimmer. He looks really stupid. I know Dalton Castle got injured, and hypothetically, what would have happened if Dalton Castle won the match and he was injured and they had to change it, or what would happen if Dalton Castle actually had a match with Roderick Strong? I'm with Mark Briscoe. The problem with Dalton Castle is he's a good wrestler. He's an underdog. He has some charisma. I think he can go very far, but he's doing the metrosexual gimmick. And so there may be some people that may be like, okay, he actually needs to drop that because somebody can say that's homophobic. Or if he's really into that culture, he has to like, maybe represent metrosexualism. So, there is a sense that he may be a little dated. But I also think that another thing too is he does aim to do comedy, and I do think that he gets over with his comedy. But just like with Orange Cassidy, I think there's a point where he has to tell himself, what type of wrestler does he want to be? Does he actually want to be there for a paycheck, or does he want to actually be a wrestler that actually makes himself a bigger and better deal? And I will say with Roderick Strong, there's a couple of things about him that I do think that I talked about Dalton Castle's issues. I do think Roderick Strong suffers from the same thing. I think he did comedy for too long, that you don't take him seriously. And I also think that the other issue with Roderick Strong is that you look at his body. Like I said, he looks like a swimmer. He doesn't, some muscle. He doesn't have a lot of muscle really. He doesn't look like a Brian Cage or something like that really. So I don't think that he's going to win this, but I do think that they might be stupid enough to actually do a title change really. I think Mark Briscoe needs to be the champion going into Wembley Stadium. I think that he needs a better opponent. Like what if it happened if he had Jack Perry and you were worried about how the Young Bucks are going to try to beat him? What would happen if he had the Don Callis family and you had Takeshita or somebody else really try to take over Ring of Honor and give them a chance, really. What would have happened if you did something like you had Okada or something that's more challenging for Mark Briscoe? I just don't think that that anything is good. You could even done Adam Cole versus Mark Briscoe. But Roderick Strong, that's definitely a huge waste, and I don't see the potential in Roderick Strong. I just think that, as I said, you did too much comedy with him. He looks very dorky. And I think that he's ultimately trying to be a big deal, but you can't really take him seriously because he did comedy for too long. It would just be like if Orange Cassidy tried to turn heel and try to be a big deal. Or I think Eugene in WWE tried to turn heel at one point, really, and it just didn't work really because you couldn't take him. You couldn't take him as a serious enemy or whatever, really. So I just don't think that that Roderick Strong is the right opponent. But I do think that they may do something stupid and they may actually have him win just so he and Matt Taven and Mike Bennett have titles. And they can kind of maybe rebuild the Undisputed Kingdom. But I think the match that you should have had was Adam Cole versus Mark Briscoe. But the other problem is that Roderick Strong was a former Ring of Honor champion. So I do think that they're probably going to do what they like to do in AEW. They may be like, okay, well, since you were a former champion, we want to do a blast of the past nostalgia and give the title to you. Or we want to give it to Adam Cole because, remember he was in Ring of Honor. And that's a little stupid. You have to kind of do a little different than, okay, what would happen if they purchased the WCW title and your whole point of it was to give it to Ric Flair or somebody like that? We're going to try to give it to somebody who's held the title just so long, many moons ago, really, So I don't think the match is going to be that good. It's actually a little bad that you have somebody like Mark Briscoe wrestling this match. Shouldn't it be a hardcore match or something like that as well, really? Or even you have 2 Texas Death matches. You start with Layla Hirsch and Diamante, and then you end with Mark Briscoe and Roderick Strong, really. There's a lot that they can kind of do with this. But it's definitely very lackluster. I think a lot of the matches really don't appeal. I think that there's many people who don't deserve these matches. They just don't have any type of appeal, or you kind of wonder the direction they're going to go in. Again, if Athena wins, what the hell do you do with Athena? Because she can't be champion forever, and then she's also on crutches. Not a good look. What would happen if you had Undisputed Kingdom win? They're not that charismatic, really. They're like Team Rocket. They're like a heel version of the Dark Order. What would happen if you had the Von Erichs lose to the Dark Order? That's a waste of a match. So there's a lot of I think matches with the wrong opponents, and there's not a lot of charismatic people, really. So I think if I had time, I would definitely do a revisionist card. And, if I have time, I'll definitely do that. But definitely, it's a very lackluster show. It was very unfortunate when they had the show in Philadelphia. I wasn't able to go because shit happened. But I had my ticket, but I had to give my ticket away because shit happened. But definitely I'll see how it goes. It could be a crappy card and it could surprise me, or it could be a crappy card and it could be crappy on top of crappy, really. So we'll see what happens.